I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, January the 23rd, brought to you in part by FerAppease, that revolutionary product that is scientifically proven, and we've talked at length about how valuable it is whenever you're weaning calves, but Dr. Rodrigo always thought that it would be just as good on yearlings, and finally had time to do a test on them. Bought a set of really nice, just commodity yearlings, but top quality there off Jeff Slatton in Beaver, Oklahoma. 900-pound steers. Sent them to the Texas A&M Research Feedlot in Bushland, Texas there, just west of Amarillo. And put those on feed, had the control group, everything exactly the same, just no FerAppease. And found out that the FerAppease steers performed better. Their average daily gain had a 3.4% increase. Hot carcass weight was 15.6 pounds better than the control group, and the marbling score increased by 5.5%. Now, whenever the smoke cleared, he had an increased return on those FerAppease steers of $51.20 compared to a $6 investment. That adds up when you start putting more of them together, guys. I think this is going to be a big thing going on in the feedlot industry as we go forward. For more information, go to FerAppease.com. Border rumors, and that's the main thing I think that sparked your CME cattle futures on Wednesday. They just shot up, and they've been wanting to get lower. We've been talking about that. They feel like they're topped out. All the technical analysts are telling us that they're overbought, and they were trying to get lower, and we could see them trying to work lower. But then Wednesday just broke out and shot up like we haven't seen them do it really all throughout this rally. But a lot of it was due to border rumors saying that possibly there was a bigger breakout of screw worms than what they thought, and I thought I'd get to the bottom of it, so I just called my good buddy Tato Medina Wallace, who runs the sale barn there at Santa Teresa, livestock right on the border, boots on the ground, knows what's going on. And I said, Tato, are you hearing any of these rumors? And he said, hell no, it's too cold down here for screw worms. And so they've had a cold blast down there. Tato said it was only 22 degrees there on Wednesday morning down there on the border, and indeed the larvae don't work in those kind of temperatures. But he also said there wasn't any rumors really floating around down on the border about anything like that. The rumors were where it makes a difference up towards Chicago, around where they're doing a lot of trading on the board. But the board shot up big on Wednesday. We'll see if there's anything to it. Tato said, as far as everybody that crosses cattle knows, down on the border, they still expect it to open up sometime this week. So we haven't heard any more about that. But said it was just likely some politics and some of the government people. And I said, well, was it anything to do with the new administration? He said, oh no, that hasn't hit home yet. So, and indeed, we don't know anything about the new Secretary of Agriculture, and she hasn't even been confirmed yet, so we don't really know what that entails, but probably just some old things that are stirring up. The reason it's not opening up and they're not getting any news about it, but that is likely a rumor mill, and a lot of times the rumors make more of an impact than what's actually going on. Plus, higher fed cattle in the southern plains. Now, normally that's a market mover, but on a Wednesday, a lot of times it wouldn't be that much because that would be the start of the trade. But the hell of it is, they started trading cattle in Kansas at 201 earlier in the week, which told us that your packers are short bought and they need cattle very badly. And in the fat cattle auctions that we have in the Midwest and the Northern Plains, our fat cattle have been sharply higher. So our small packers are needing to dig in there and get those, and then the bigger packers are out there bidding right against them. So, but we saw fat cattle in the Southern Plains bring 202 on Wednesday. And that's significant that we gained a buck after we had already started trade at 201, and it was pretty well established already. So those are the reasons that the board was up so sharply on Wednesday. And you know, it's been cold around. I mean, extremely cold, even in the southeast. And I told you about the cold temperatures down to El Paso, Santa Teresa, New Mexico area there. But you know, they had snow in New Orleans, significant amounts of snow like they haven't seen since the 1800s. Here is a picture that I got from a Feeder Flash gang member down in Marianna, Florida. Jansen Lord sent me this picture of some cattle he had in his pens there. That's significant. That looks like South Dakota or maybe North Dakota. It's hard to believe that we're seeing temperatures and conditions like that across the South. And feeder receipts have been a lot lighter this week around so far, mostly due to the cold temperatures, because it's just, like I said on our last visit, it's hard to get things started, hard to get going, hard to get the cattle moving when it's this cold, and of course the people don't want to do it either. But also we're seeing these numbers of feeder cattle drying up. The outstanding market that we had late last year and early this year brought those cattle to town. Guys didn't want to miss out on that market, and we've kind of sold the cattle already that we should be selling now. And I'm hearing widespread that a lot of your sale barns in the Midwest and the Northern Plains, that when receipts lighten up, they'll go to every other week, because whenever they have a sale, they want to make it for the buyers where they have more cattle to offer them and the market will be better. And they're already starting to schedule every other week in a lot of your sizable sale barns, feeder cattle auctions across the Midwest and the Northern Plains. I want to share some information with you about a production sale that DVAuction broadcasted earlier this week, and it was a reputation deal. The Van Newkirk Herefords out of Oshkosh, Nebraska. There, they sold really well and had the averages on them. That's 77 yearling Hereford bulls with an average price of $12,227. Wow. How about 167 two-year-old Hereford bulls? You think people aren't trying to, mix up their genetics a little bit? 167 of those two-year-old Hereford bulls averaged just over $15,000 a piece. My goodness. Now that is a real reputation deal there, but we're seeing higher prices on these seed stock sales so far, and we're just now starting to get into the production sales season, but it's looking really good. Don't forget about our Punchy Pick of the Month contest. We're already working towards the end of the month, and we'll be pulling out the prize winner here before long. Of course, if you get one, and we should have some good ones with the cold temperatures and the snow and everything all around. If you get a Punchy Pick on your phone, just email that picture to punchy@nationalbeefwire.com. You're automatically entered, doesn't cost you a thing. Of course, the grand prize winner will win a big prize full of all kinds of fancy swag that you can't get a hold of anywhere else from National Beef Wire, Feeder Flash. There's stuff in there that I don't even have, and I don't know why somebody doesn't send it to me. We got some cool stuff from Beaver Feed Company in Beaver, Oklahoma. They've been with us from the very beginning. Beaver County Stockyards, of course, they'll have some neat stuff from them, and they've got some really cool caps, sweatshirts, t-shirts, stuff like that. But the main thing on the grand prize of the Punchy Pick of the Month contest is the whole case of FerAppease, which I talked about at the beginning of this report, and I will try to remember to attach a video at the end of this to share some more information with you about FerAppease. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday, and it was sharply higher. My gosh, when we just knew that it was wanting to work lower. But February live cattle futures was up $3 smooth at $200 and a nickel. Now that is very impressive. Of course, it's a February spot market. I realized that on Tuesday's close it was $6.50 behind what our market is. But that's a February traded month, so it didn't have to get that close anytime, but it did. got shot right up there, guys, and now really close to what our fed cattle bring in direct basis. April live cattle up 245 at 199.77, and then your back months were all up big too, up 177 to up 245. So big gains, but that's nothing compared to the feeder cattle futures. January feeder cattle up 265 at 277.05, actually encompassed the real-time index, and sitting right between your real-time index, which is always up to date and current, and your CME cash feeder cattle index, which always lags behind a little bit, but right up there with them, and that's an impressive move there. But check out March feeder cattle. And I think everybody knows that these numbers are extremely tight, like I told you a while ago about these sales going every other week. But March feeder cattle futures up 582 on Wednesday, settling at 273.07. Your back months were up big, guys. Take a look at this, up $3 to 482 on your back months. I urge you guys that have cattle renting out, if you're backgrounding them or growing them, to look at that on that. There's bound to be a protection price out there that you can get an LRP on that will protect you in case this market does fall out of bed. But I urge you to take a look at that and consider putting some LRP protection on your cattle. The August feeder cattle futures is sitting at 271.65. That's very impressive. Talk about your grains. March corn up 5 3/4 cents a bushel at 490. Soybeans up 33 1/4. Must have something to do with these bitter cold temperatures up there. With soybeans for March settling at 1067 1/4. Your hard red winter wheat for March up 27 cents at 575 1/2. Now your fat cattle trade did increase just a little bit more. Actually, not as much trade direct basis negotiated cash in your 5 area as we had on Tuesday, but we did see some more trade. Iowa sold 200 head, only 550 for the week so far. Live price in Iowa on Wednesday at 206. Nebraska sold a couple of hundred at 205 on Wednesday. Kansas sold another 100 head, and they've sold 5,500 for the week. Like I said, it was pretty well established at 201. On Wednesday, we saw 201 and 201 1/2 coming from the Fed Cattle Exchange. And then Texas feedlot area selling 550 head on Wednesday. They've sold 1,350 for the week, but the price in Texas negotiated direct sales for fed cattle at 202, again established on the Fed Cattle Exchange, that online trading platform that has competition. It has packers bidding against one another for the cattle. The Fed Cattle Exchange session on Wednesday morning sold beef on dairy cattle out of Texas, bid the grid base price at 202.50. That was similar to a week ago, but they sold just straight up negotiated cash price in Kansas at 201.50. Those are the ones I mentioned a while ago. And then those cattle in Texas at 202. You've got to have competition to increase the market, guys. That's just the way it goes. Talk about some fed cattle auctions up in the Midwest and the Northern Plains. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota, they had a lighter run because of the bitter cold temperatures. About 800 head of slaughter cattle for them, including all the classes. Conventional fed cattle at Sioux Falls Regional sold $5 to $10 higher, from 208 to 216, with the program cattle, non-implanted or drug-free, selling from 212 to 223. Wow. How about Glacial Lakes Livestock in Watertown, South Dakota? They had 600 head of slaughter cattle there at their auction on Wednesday. They sold $5 to $8 higher, with conventional fed cattle in Watertown selling from 201 to 208, and program cattle from 210 to 216. I saw where Lanesboro, Minnesota's fed cattle auction this week sold fed cattle from 214 1/2 to 218 1/4. So when you see these smaller packers, they're renting out, they're going in, they're mixing it up, they're dirtying the water for your larger packers that typically own the fat cattle auctions there, or they kind of dominate them. but they're stirring things up and making prices higher, and I feel like it's making some effect on our direct trade. And if I had fat cattle to sell, they were in loose hands, I didn't have them promised to anybody, I would probably haul them to a fat cattle auction to get competitive bidding on those cattle. But box beef cutout values were lower, but not a lot lower on Wednesday afternoon. Choice cuts down just 3 cents at $332.02, still very impressive. Selects down 156 at $317.99. Your slaughter so far for the week, estimated cattle slaughter through federal inspection up through Wednesday, 363,000. That's 3,000 less than last week, 1,000 more than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. You might want to consider Charolais to mix up your genetics in your herd this production sales season, as it's just getting underway. But pounds matter and pay weight counts. The industry wants bigger carcasses. You need more frame to hang those on. And with widespread industry acceptance, Charolais is a good way to go. Check out more information there and sales in your area at charolaiusa.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction, based on a 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states, actually running from 700 to 899, just like your CME cash feeder cattle index, but always up to date and current. On Wednesday afternoon, 276.55. That was down a little bit, but just 38 cents. So basically running in there pretty close to steady with some big, just commodity cattle auctions on Wednesday. But your latest CME cash feeder cattle index is sitting at 278.18. Let's talk about some big sales that happened on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, had their 2-day sale. Only 5,300, which is not nearly as big as they normally have, but it's been bitter cold and miserable in central Oklahoma also. But what a sale they had this week. Feeder steers are $3 to $8 higher. The feeder heifers sold mostly steady. You look at an outstanding quote from OKC West and El Reno. They sold 66 steers, weighed 717 at $293 in El Reno, Oklahoma. Thought that was impressive. Your NationalBeefWire stick-out sale of the day happened in Aberdeen, South Dakota at Hub City Livestock. Longtime DVAuction broadcaster there. When I pulled it, I think the sale was still going on, but they had sold about 4,200 head of feeder cattle, which was a little bit light for them this time of year. You look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, and you see your best tested weights. There were 351 head of 5-weight steers. They averaged 546 with a weighted average price of $362.40. That's big time, guys. 795 head of 6-weight steer calves and Hub City averaged 637, weighted average price $329.43, and that included 71 head of 605-pound steer calves at $360. That's right about as high as we've seen it all through the rally here, guys. 798 head of 7-weight steers averaged 753 at $290.84, and 501 head of 8-weight steers averaged 831 at $277.13. Look at some of the heifers. 309 head of 5-weight heifer calves averaged 545 with a weighted average price of $322.23. 480 head of the 6-weight heifers averaged 652 at $296.61. And there were 469 head of 7-weight heifers at Hub City Livestock in Aberdeen, South Dakota. They averaged 741 at $277.95. Several individual quotes from all around I want to give you. How about one out of Creston, America, otherwise known as Creston, Iowa, and Creston Livestock Market there. Tom Fry used to call it Creston, America, and I thought that was pretty cool, and it is cool, and it still is. How about 85 steers weighed 721 on Wednesday in Creston? They bring $3 smooth. Big time quote out of there. How about Marana Stockyards in Arizona? They sell 50 steers, weigh 592 at $320. Down there in the Southwest, guys. That's a big time quote. How about Buffalo Livestock Auction in Buffalo, Wyoming? They sell 97 steers, weighed 581 at 357. About Stockman's Livestock in Yankton, South Dakota, we always talk about their fat cattle auctions, often talk about their big feeder sales like they had on Wednesday. They sold 54 steers, weighed 795, almost 800 pounds at 292. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, by a long ways actually, and your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Equity Cooperative in Waukon, Iowa. It was 78 steers, weighed 902 at 283. And that's a farmer feeder there, and you can't beat that. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.
My biggest account is Jeff Slatton, the owner of Beaver County Stockyards. For a while, we was selling him lots of antibiotics to doctor his cattle with. He was having basically a wreck at times. FerAppease comes along, we introduce it, he starts trying it out. Almost instantly, his vet bill reduced drastically, and the only thing that was changed up was FerAppease. I've also had other guys, cow-calf guys, this previous fall that tried it. Had one individual out here east of Beaver. First time he's ever tried it. He said he's always weaned his calves. They've bawled. They're right around his house. Can't sleep. This is the first year he's used it. He sent me a video one afternoon. The calves are all at the bunk. They're eating. They're spread out doing what they're supposed to do, and not a sound. So he was sold on it instantly. I've had several other reports of that. Lots of people saying that their cattle they act different. They're calmer, they handle easier, they're at the bunk, they're drinking. If your cattle are doing that, they're gaining, they're doing what they're supposed to do.